All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Simplify Your Nonprofit's Financial Management with Fund Accounting. My name is Kim Solomon, and I'll be your moderator. I work on the marketing team here at JMT Consulting, and I'm excited to be hosting this session today. I'm pleased to introduce today's speaker, Dan Wharton. Dan is an MIP Client Account Manager at JMT Consulting, and today he's going to talk to you about why we believe JMT is the best nonprofit partner out there and give you an overview of the MIP Fund Accounting system. Before I hand it over to Dan, I have a few housekeeping items to cover. First, today's webinar will be recorded and will be emailed to you for on-demand access along with the slide deck. Next, we'd love to hear from you during today's session. If you have a question for Dan, please feel free to send it through the Q&A tab at the bottom. We'll be answering questions at the end of the session. So without further ado, I'd like to kick things off by welcoming Dan. Dan, over to you.
Thank you, Kim. Just 1 second here as I fiddle around with the settings. Give me 1 sec. All right, sorry about that, folks. When nonprofit organizations grow beyond a certain size, particularly when they begin to see material revenue from more than one source or stream, the weakness of off-the-shelf bookkeeping tools such as QuickBooks becomes apparent. JMT Consulting has been recommending MIP Fund Accounting to nonprofits for more than 25, 26 years. MIP is a true fund accounting solution that will allow organizations large and small to meet all regulatory, audit, and fund reporting requirements. MIP also provides a versatile and scalable platform for growth. So, welcome. Join JMT as we provide an in-depth overview of MIP and the benefits it provides to nonprofit organizations. Today's presentation should take about 50 minutes to deliver, and at the end, we'll have about 5 or 10 minutes to answer questions from the audience. I think it's important to start off by telling you a little bit about who we are and who we serve, how we only serve the nonprofit community, and how we've grown to become the largest MIP partner in the country. Let's start with this, and then we'll get into MIP. JMT Consulting is the largest MIP reseller, not just in volume, but also in size. We have regional offices in Austin, Texas, that's where I am, Nashville, Tennessee, and Patterson, New York. Today's presentation is on MIP Fund Accounting, but we should also acknowledge that there are times when we have to source a solution from an approved third party. Again, approved third party. JMT is vetted through hundreds of vendors to bring you the best-in-class solutions for payroll, financial planning and analysis, cemetery management, AP automation, document management, and more, really everything that touches GL. And rest assured, everything that we do will lead to a better process and greater efficiency. So how did we get our start? Well, you can see the picture of Jackie in the upper right. That is the farmhouse in Patterson, and we were founded back in 1991 by a nonprofit finance professional, Jackie M. Tiso, hence the name. So Jackie was in her 4th role as a nonprofit finance person when she left and started her own consulting firm. She had been a customer for a few software and technology implementations, but was less than thrilled in what she had experienced. So with a lifelong passion for nonprofits and having been a customer who was less than pleased with the technology services that she received, it was really in that spirit that she founded JMT nearly 30 years ago. I realize that I'm throwing a bunch of options at you, and really you haven't even had an opportunity to see what MIP has to offer. And maybe you've heard MIP is a modular-based system. Perhaps you already know that there are 26 modules available. That part doesn't matter yet. What does matter is that as a nonprofit, you have options. You don't have to be the biggest in order to get the best. JMT has a roster of solutions partners that we recommend. Tested and approved by your peers in the nonprofit community. And speaking of, let's take a look at some of the organizations that we've helped along the way. A lot of banners here, a lot of logos. You recognize any of these names? I've personally worked with quite a few. But the truth is that JMT served over 2,000 nonprofit organizations and helped every one of them at some capacity in helping them achieve their goals. And really, it's just through our mission at JMT. Our mission is your business. I'm going to jump over to just one example. I'm going to share one customer's perspective. This is an organization called Health First, and Health First is a nonprofit located in central Wisconsin. They help families with reproductive and nutritional services. They've been a JMT client for 7 years now, since 2013. Being a nonprofit healthcare provider, they have a complicated accounting structure and built to accommodate multiple funding streams. They're receiving insurance payments, donations, grants, and they have their own fundraising efforts. But in order to alleviate some of the manual processes the organization was doing, they chose to implement MIP. In this, being software helped them eliminate hours of manual entry, allowed staff to be more productive. Because the organization had bigger plans for the future, they wanted to expand its offerings. So Health First later implemented the HR and employee web services modules. In doing so, they also migrated over to the MIP cloud. And this made sense for them as they had 8 different locations and employees that traveled between them. So improved accounting, streamlined HR, and more tech-driven capabilities really helped transform Health First into the organization it is today, and has helped them serve more vulnerable populations all over the state of Wisconsin. Nina, thank you very much for contributing this. Let's see if everyone's still paying attention. Hey, Kim, can everyone see the poll or survey?
I don't think so. If you try pressing poll one more time, or I can do it.
If you would, please.
Sure.
I don't think I am that technically talented.
Okay. Launch poll.
Hey.
Okay. Did it pop up?
It says host and panelists cannot vote. Looks like they can see it.
You can't vote, Dan, but everyone else can vote.
Cool. Okay. See? Told you I'm not technically savvy here.
All right. We got 1 vote for Sage and another vote for Oracle or another enterprise class ERP.
Okay. All right. So if everyone would go ahead and select which accounting system are you using today? If you're a consultant, and I think there are a couple on here, please pick which one you tend to recommend the most or work with the most. Okay. While you're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce a few members of the MIP team. That guy in the ugly green tie, that's Tom, and he's represented MIP in some form or fashion for more than 20 years. Dennis has been a support role and supported the application for now 14 years. And Steve, he started out as a finance director, and we lured him over to JMT, but he now works as an implementation specialist and certified trainer. But like Tom, I was introduced to MIP by working directly for the software publisher. Others here all represent our marketing, client success, and professional services teams. these are the folks that you'll come to know along the way. Bear with me as I try and find the answer to our first survey.
It looks like the most people voted for Oracle or another enterprise class ERP, with 3 votes, and Sage ended up with 1 vote.
I would have lost money here. I thought for sure we'd have quite a few QuickBooks users. That's good. Curious to know what your personal interests are in a solution like MIP, but we can get to that later. Feel free to give us a call and let us know, or when we follow up with you guys next week, let us know if you got everything that you were looking for out of this presentation. So why do we recommend MIP Fund Accounting? Well, number one, it's 100% FASB compliant. I could go on to give you some sort of long, dull definition of a fund and how a fund is a fiscal and accounting entity with a self-balancing set of accounts, recording cash and other financial resources, together with all the related liabilities and residual equities or balances and changes therein, which are segregated for the purpose of trying to carry on specific activities or attaining certain objectives in accordance with special regulations, restrictions, or limitations. But I wouldn't do that to you. Number two, MIP has a long and rich 30-year history with over 6,000 active customers. They posted a retention rate or renewal rate, if you will, of greater than 97%. They've done that for more than 10 years. It's a pretty good track record. Transparency comes in the form of quite a few different things. I think maybe one of my favorite examples is their online status page. They actually post on the World Wide Web a public and very accessible website that literally shows anyone that wants to look at it what the current status is of their cloud hosting service. So if you're a competitor and you want to know whether or not MIP is down, you can actually go visit this website and get some intel. Of course, if you're a cloud user and are experiencing some disruption, this is definitely the first place you want to go to make sure that there isn't a service outage. I think most importantly is that there's language inside the terms and conditions that guarantee at least 99.99% availability. And if that mathematical calculation comes out to be a certain percentage, then they will start paying you. So long story short, they have your back. Customer-driven product development, they have a very active and engaged UI team. There's an online user community. There are multiple user and developer conferences. These are held each year. Of course, the folks that own MIP Community Brands, they're down in Orlando each November, December. We have our own user conference. It's coming up in May. Hopefully, we will be in Connecticut that first week. Again, there's just no shortage of resources for customers to suggest improvements, give their feedback, work with the dedicated UI teams at Community Brands, and continuing to improve the application and the interface. Ease of use. You're going to see quite a few screenshots along the way, but you'll get the feel that this is a very modern, intuitive web interface. More details, there are role-based dashboards, intuitive help menus, built-in wizards and guides. There are multiple controls within the application. Each process is custom built for routine transactions. So as you're thinking about what you do on a routine basis throughout your day, creating journal entries, posting transactions, what have you, there are multiple fields that you have to click through. Well, some of those fields can be hard-coded, meaning as you tab through them, they're going to auto-populate. So we'll get to some of that information here soon. But again, the whole message is that coming from whatever system you use and jumping over to MIP, very short learning curve here. Community brands is to my knowledge, and please, if you're on this webinar and know otherwise, feel free to correct me. But as far as I know, Community Brands is the only vendor that offers a power to choose, meaning you as a customer have the ability to either choose a server-based application, you install the software, you maintain it on your servers and go from there, or you can deploy in the cloud. And Community Brands is not going to make that decision for you. It's up to you as to what works best. And of course, there are pros and cons behind each, but which ones, which side outweighs the other, we can help you come to that conclusion. One other little nuance here. Not only is Community Brands the only vendor that's offering an on-premise and a cloud-based solution, but they actually offer 2 different cloud deployments. What we've noticed is that there are customers out there, and I think for the consultants in this room, this might be something specifically for you, but Community Brands has developed an API. They've chosen a REST-based API to develop third-party integrations. So if you are looking for that kind of service, I would strongly advise that you take a look at the multi-tenant cloud solution. And for folks that want something that's even more integrated than that, we can take a look at a single tenant cloud deployment. Important characteristics of MIP. This slide is way too accounting-y for me, and there's not much reason for me to try and attempt to summarize. So I'll pause and kind of let you read through it. However, MIP was purpose-built to be a true fund accounting solution, and nonprofits have a unique set of characteristics, and you can see some of these here. So in order to satisfy these requirements of funders and deliver a meaningful story to the board, MIP had to be written differently. So that's really what sets it apart. So let's take a look at how MIP makes all this happen. I think we might need to start by explaining what it means to be a table-driven software application. And so let me draw your attention to the bottom of the slide here. This is what we don't mean by table-driven. This is a classic example of a linear chart of accounts. You can pair these up here. So I've got my general fund 100, I've got printing 6,000, and I've got a department code. If there are any QuickBooks users in the house, then this is going to seem very familiar to you. Customers using the linear method will often tell us that their chart of accounts is 30, 40, 50 pages long. These long, archaic strings are comprised of every possible combination you can think of. From our standpoint, that's where the problem lies. With hundreds of account codes, strings to manage, it's difficult to isolate the specific piece of data you're trying to report. And customers would tell us that they'd have to dump all their data into a spreadsheet and then manipulate the data from there. We're going to tell you the same thing we told them. With a table-driven chart of accounts, those problems go away. They simply just don't exist. Each segment list is maintained on a separate table. MIP allows you to characterize your segments and match the report data to the story you want to present to your board. Having the ability to name your segments makes life easier for you and your team. What you do here will flow right into the reporting area. So where you see names in the chart of accounts, you'll see it throughout the entire application. And because it's dimensional, you can combine anything you want without having to export it in Excel. Again, we'll take a look at reports and what that really means, or how to create those combinations a little bit later. We recognize that this might be too much of a change for some users, but I want to assure you that the software makes it easier to pick up and retain, and you can also assume that JMT would help you through any potential learning curve. Let's take a look, shall we? I'm sorry, folks. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is the dashboard. The dashboard is the first thing you see when you actually log into the application. MIP has created a role-based dashboard environment, and there are 6 roles available for you to customize. There's a AP dashboard, an AR dashboard, budget management, cash management, an executive view, and financial performance. So here we have cash management. Here, in this second example, we have financial performance. These are 2 different views, and each one can be customized. In this first example, we can see cash management. I have the ability to customize the screen. I can move a widget. I can add or remove them, or I can apply filters. And just a quick note, in case you're unfamiliar with the term widget, these are the boxes. So this aged payables box is a widget. Oops. In the second example, we have financial performance. So a lot of times we'll see financial leaders, we'll see engaged board members, executive directors, all jump onto this particular dashboard. And the reason being we promote this so heavily is because more and more boards are selecting certain data points or key performance indicators for their finance and accounting teams to manage. And so a really good idea would be to go ahead and embed those KPIs into the financial performance dashboard. That way, everyone's on top, everyone's on the same page. The messaging is consistent and clear, and of course, those leaders are getting exactly what they needed. Just a quick side note, a lot of this information renders quite well on a smartphone. So I've often promoted the idea, and I've seen it work quite a few times. Let's say you have a CFO that's jumping into a board meeting, it would be great to have them go ahead and pull up this financial performance dashboard just to get a quick understanding as to where things might be. So now let's start digging into reports. And let's assume that one of the main reasons you're here is because your current system isn't giving you all that you need. My guess is that most of your reporting is done is either cumbersome or done manually. Well, I guess the good news is you can list Jedi Master in Excel as a skill on your resume, but how does that help with the growth of the organization? And how does that help you when you need to take a much-needed vacation? MIP Report Writer includes a robust set of FASB and GASB compliant reports, and there are actually over 180 canned reports to choose from, and each one of them can be customized. For today, I'm going to select a GL analysis report, and while we're going through that, I'll highlight a few key areas along the way. So the first thing I need to do after selecting the report type is to customize my columns. What data do I want to show? This is where you do it. Pre-formatted or default reports will automatically come with a set of columns. And it's really up to you to modify them. I can drag and drop as I go. I can reorder. I can columnize the data the way that I want. Off screen down here, there are coding options for things like beginning period actual, current year change, and prior year current with period actual. So you can see that a lot of these pivots are already built into the tool without you having to use those Jedi skills that I talked about with Excel in here. Much more intuitive, much more user-friendly. In this case, I've already made all my data selections, and now I'm ready to format my report. And you may notice that Report Builder also allows you to use things like page breaks. So it allows you to pick and choose what data you want to emphasize. So let's say I was building a one-pager, and then all of a sudden I need to spread that out over into 3 or 4 or 10 different pages, each one serving a targeted audience. I can do that all here within just a few clicks. There are tons of options available. For example, this is where you generate a report for your grantor that includes total duration of a grant. Many organizations have grants that last 18, 24, 36 months. There are options for unposted transactions, year-end adjustments, and encumbrances as expenditures. It's important to note that this is very different in the QuickBooks world. QuickBooks allows you to edit the transaction as needed, meaning I can overwrite something. MIP is much more rigid. It'll allow you to reverse an entry, and you can post in a correcting entry, but you can't delete or edit the original entry. And MIP maintains a very detailed audit trail for everything that you do. We'll take a little deeper dive here soon. Layout. This is where you can adjust column widths, wrap text, customize footers, change fonts, or select orientation. The moral of the story here is that you should not be building your reports inside of Excel. Literally everything that you'd need to do in terms of selecting the data, selecting the pivots, formatting it, it's all done within this easy-to-use screen. And voila, here is a sample. Pretty clean, easy to read, understandable, relevant, so on and so forth, all these other cool words that I can't think of right now. And at this point, now you have the option to export your data onto a spreadsheet. If you are trying to maybe make a visualization, I also have the ability to just format it over to PDF and hand it out. I can email this report. I can email it to an individual, or I can email it to a group of individuals. I can also save this particular format for later, or I can share this format with a coworker, really whatever you need here. So we're a little past the halfway mark of the presentation. Let's pause and see if we can take another survey. Hey Kim, is the poll for number of board members or number of individuals? Yeah, perfect.
Yes, I just did it.
Cool. Okay. So excluding board members, how many individuals are reviewing financial statements on a monthly basis? So what we're driving at is how many folks are actually engaged, how many folks are actively looking at a statement of revenue and expenditures, how many are looking at cash flow statements, how many are looking at budget versus actual, any of these financial statements, and again, exclude board members. And I think what we're looking at is not only how large is your finance and accounting team, but is it possible that you're sending the right messaging or sharing the right messages and data with program managers and account managers and grant managers and things like that, maybe even folks over in development. Give everyone a minute to make their selection, and for those that are finished, enjoy my attempts at bringing a little humor into the conversation. All right, let's continue.
I don't know if you guys saw the results, but it looks like 4 people voted that 1 to 5 members are in reviewing the financial statements on a monthly basis.
Interesting. Very interesting. Okay, cool. Thank you, Kim. All right, let's talk about administration. What sort of controls do you have inside the system? What can you automate from a user level? What sort of organizational preferences do you have, so on and so forth? So this top picture shows current activity. Keep in mind that the database name refers to the specific area that you're working in. So if I was over in AP, I would see AP1, AP-C, APM, just depending on, am I talking about cash or management, or am I talking about invoices, things of that nature. Something else that QuickBooks users don't have, and this is shown in the screenshot below, summary organization audit, and this is a default. Will show you who logged in, when they did it, what they did, and what their activity was as they logged in the system, and whether it was a successful event. So let's say they're trying to post a transaction and they had a failure, or they received a discrepancy. The system will automatically recognize whether or not they were successful in their attempt, and if so, they'll catalog it here. So I know exactly who's logging into the system, how often they're doing it, how much time they're spending. I can even get into kind of a granular level. I can understand how much of their day is being spent on a particular task or activity. Now, if I wanted to, I could prevent certain users from performing certain activities. I can lock down bank rec. I can limit access to read-only. I can show program managers the data only they are responsible for. So if they have a certain set of accounts or programs, I can make sure that I tailor their viewability to support that. When it comes to user preferences, I can set entry defaults. Maybe it's a specific set of codes that they use routinely, or maybe you want the system to memorize a particular set of entry selections. This is especially helpful with making journal entries. MIP also comes with organizational preferences. I can select different processing types. I can block transactions from being posted outside of the current fiscal year. I can set it so that session IDs are session ID numbers are generated automatically or input manually. Similar thing with document numbers, where they can auto increment the values. There's even a performance monitor, a data integrity check that combs through each database. And again, keep in mind, databases in this case is a particular area or function within MIP. And combs through each database to see if everything is in balance. So if the offset isn't correct, you'll get a check failure. If distribution code didn't take, you'll get a failure there. So lots of checks and balances inside of the administration screen. Lots of great ways to automate things as well. So let's jump over and do a quick exercise in AP. And let's say I want to look at a certain vendor's activity within a given date range. I select the appropriate filters and then click Apply. In this case, I selected to look at all activity associated, AACT, that's the code here. And because we're talking about accounts payable and we're looking inside the vendor record, I'm seeing a little more AP detail here. So from the top, I see the construction invoice. Here's the description. And if I click on the document number, I can drill down into the transaction. What comes up, I will see when the new window pops up, I'll see the AP invoice. I can see that there was a check. So here's the AP invoice. Here's the check. It was cut here. I can see the check was also voided. And then the check was reissued as a voucher. I can look over to the right, and I can see all the descriptions, and I can see that everything has actually cleared. clear, clear, clear. Should the vendor call, I can use
Hey,
the screen to
Dan.
validate the history and confirm the vendor. Yeah,
Sorry, we just had a question come through about this
sure.
page from Howard. He wants to know if this is the AP module for the cloud-based MIP.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. There's more to it, you know. I'm sorry for all the screenshots. I find it that it's a little more reliable. You can very easily, any one of you here could request access to the sandbox. So we can't issue free trials, so to speak, but we do have a free sandbox. And what that really means is we can deliver a generic version of the software and let you play with it. So if you want to get used to the features, get used to the functionality, if you wanted to even enter in some vendor records of your own and generate your own transactions, you very well could. But getting back to it, I find that using screenshots as opposed to trying to navigate through the system is just a little bit more reliable, especially when I'm having to use remote desktop to try and connect to their sandbox. If I actually had a cloud license, it might be a different story, but I would have to remote desktop, and I haven't had much success with that in the past. So anyway, my apologies, but hopefully you can still, you know, get a picture of what things would look like in the cloud environment. Okay. So if the vendor did call, I could use the screen to validate the history and confirm that the vendor has actually been paid. You know, maybe there was a snafu, or maybe they saw this and all of a sudden we're wondering what was going on. Okay, did you notice that the document number also appears to be a hyperlink? That's because it is. If you click on the document number, I can pull up all the debits and credits that are associated. I'll see that a fund, a grant, GL, program, department codes will all populate along with the entry types and their effective dates. Let's move over to transaction entry and AP invoices. So API, AP invoices. Maybe something to note here is that MIP is a batch file system, and in most cases, customers will elect to have or not have unposted sessions. This is more of a philosophical type of approach or question. If you elect to create unposted sessions, you could go one step further and decide who can or cannot post them to the GL, meaning there are certain users maybe you want to restrict. And this is another control within the system. The first picture is of all the unposted sessions I have within a given time range, and I input that time range. The other is what shows when I open the API session ID. So I clicked on here, and I got this. I could have easily searched by invoice number. I could have easily searched by document date. I could have searched by the amount, a vendor ID, or really anything you see here in order to get this information. One thing you can't see here is that by typing in the first few letters of the vendor ID, right here, I was greeted by a list of possible matches. If I find my vendor on that list, I can select it, and the remaining fields that I need to populate will auto-populate with that vendor's information. So address, 1099 checkboxes, things like that, and it'll all auto-populate. Something else to call out here is that MIP is going to track 1099s for all your vendors. And when it comes time, MIP is going to go ahead and connect and e-file the service and let you send that information for free over with the IRS. If you decide that you want to also use MIP to generate and distribute those 1099s to all your vendors, they do have a couple options. You can either buy certain paper stock and do it on your own. You can elect to have a service. I don't remember what the dollar amount is per record, but I think it's maybe $1.50, $1.60, somewhere around there. or you can just choose to do it on your own. It's really up to you, and I guess how many vendors you're working with. Just off screen below the 1099 type is the actual transaction screen. So let's jump over to there. Let's see what an actual transaction looks like. Entry. In this uppermost screenshot, you see the GL is listed first, fund second, grant third, and so on. I can reorder these at any point in time. I've done this here in the second screenshot. And the reason these are movable is to really help you during the entry process. The faster we can help you move through the fields, the more productive you become. Each field has a drop-down or pick list with all of your available codes. You can see here in grant. Another shortcut we can use is to hard code the system. I can assign a specific code to the vendor instead of manually selecting the codes via the drop-down list, meaning I can assign grant 501 and GL code 57001 with vendor ABC, leaving it to me to fill in the gaps. In case you're wondering, yes, you can override the fields that have been auto-populated if you need to use a different grant or GL code. So if you want to make it a little more routine, go ahead and auto-populate it, hard-code it in the system, and then for those one-offs, just override it. Another differentiator between QuickBooks and MIP can be seen with the effective date field. And what's hidden here is that MIP is an accrual-based system and manages two separate dates. First, when was the invoice posted to the GL? That's the effective date. Second, when was the check paid to that invoice? Those are two separate dates and two separate processes. That said, it's easy to manage both within the same screen. I can tab through my fields to make the appropriate selections, and then I can hit Apply Offset to balance my account. I've seen that here. So I had 56001 hard-coded. I had grant, maybe a fund code I had to populate, maybe populate some of this information too. And as I hit this information, I clicked Apply Offsets so that everything populated appropriately. We also have a feature called distribution codes. And what if the invoice I have here needs to be spread over multiple accounts? What if I need to perform that spread a little more routinely? Well, I can program this spread so that it auto-calculates whenever I tell it to. And what exactly is it calculating? Well, it can calculate percentages. It can calculate fixed amounts, and there are quite a few other allocations that are available. And again, all of it can be done across multiple accounts. So distribution codes take into consideration your segment structure and just makes it easier to program. So that's entry, and that is a distribution code. Let's jump over to budget management. There are two primary reasons why nonprofits, I guess my experience, there have been two consistent reasons why the organization or the nonprofit will make the decision to replace the current accounting system. We already talked about the first one, and that's reporting. The second reason is all about budget management. And I could guess that you've either created workarounds to make your software work, or those workarounds were really never meant to be handled inside the system. They're difficult to maintain, prone to human error, and from what we found, just nearly impossible to replicate. Well, this is why we love, another reason why we love MIP. MIP lets you control your level of involvement, and I'll get to that here in a sec. But really, I love using the interface to create a budget. I can, as you can see here, I can either work from an original, I can select a revised, I can even select between operating and actual budget worksheets. And to help me kind of along the way, there's a key. And this key is not just exclusive to budget management, but you'll see keys throughout the entire application. And again, this really helps promote the learning of the application, especially for new users. But it also helps with just becoming more and more efficient. To help drive that efficiency, if I were to actually click on a help menu, MIP would automatically recognize the area that I'm in. In this case, if I clicked on Help on the budget worksheet, MIP would then return and provide relevant content. So it would give me it would suggest a whole bunch of steps and content that related directly to budget management. So it's very unlike just trying to navigate through an entire help workbook. Anyway, once I've chosen a worksheet, I'll then select the segment or segments I want to include. The thing about this is what I'm trying to compare, and the thing to do or the thing to think about is what am I trying to compare and at what level am I looking at this data? How am I budgeting? It might be at the expense level. I can look at a combination of revenues or expenses, or I can include all available accounts. Now I go to set my filters, and this is the same drag and drop functionality that we saw back in the report builder. I can add operators, or I can use trends that appeared last year's budget. So let's say June's budget was lower than July, we had a spike. Well, I can carry that trend. I can have those trends carry over. I can also inject comparative columns, and we'll take a look at that here in a second. Here is a sample worksheet based on the parameters that I set on the previous screen. You can see that I included 3 segments: grant, GL, program. I did it for just one grant, 201, which happens to have a couple different programs in it, 101, 201, so on and so forth. I chose to do a previous year's actual and a previous year's operating, and then I'm asking myself to enter the budget here in column H. So depending on whether your glasses are clean or your eyesight's real good, you should be able to distinguish between these blue backgrounds and white backgrounds. If not, just take my word for it. In case you're wondering, all this information that you see here in column H, I actually had the system populate this for me. I'm just allowing myself the ability to override. So all this information can be populated, and depending on how you work inside your organization, you may choose to go with 0 right from the start, or you may provide last year's actuals, or you may provide this year's projections. It's up to you, whatever you want to do. And then when you're first building, or when you're first starting out, we can import that information from wherever you're keeping it. A lot of cases, customers are keeping it on Excel. We can very easily take that information and upload it. There are plenty of Excel-like features in here. So I can insert a row, I can drag, I can copy and paste, I can even create formulas if I needed to. There are also things that you can't do here in Excel. You can highlight a group of cells. Let's say I wanted to take this chunk here, if you would. And it could be a row, it can be a column, or it can be a combination of both. But if I did, I can right-click, and now I can do things like modify the quantities. Why would I do something like that? Well, let's say I had a budget decrease of 5% in a particular area. Well, I could just select that chunk, right-click, and then enter the negative value so that it impacts the rest of the selection. Same thing happens for let's say vice versa. So if I had a budget increase, I can again select that chunk, either that row or column or combination of both, to accommodate for that increase. I can go into specific cells and do things like add a comment. I can highlight a particular line item and lock it down. I can also modify on the fly. I can take a particular value and alter its value within the budget worksheet. I can increase or decrease by a specific amount. I can bring in an allocation. I can reset to zeros or to a different amount. There's also something called a budget spread, and I wish I'd taken a screenshot of that. I'm sorry I didn't, but it is inherent of every budget worksheet. But it's a specific column, and its purpose it's a great tool. Let's say I entered a value of 12,000, let's say my budget was by quarter for a 12-month period. Well, it would take that 12,000 divided by the 4 quarters and apply 3,000 to each quarter. So I only have to enter it once over on that budget spread, and it impacts everything that's inside my report. Let's jump over to bank reconciliation. Before I do, I need to give you a quick public service announcement. What you saw is, or what you're about to see is what is in place today. The MIP developers, the folks over at Community Brands, their development staff is working on a new and improved bank rec module. And Community Brands has already given us a spring release date. That typically means, if we're talking about software vendors and software publishers, that typically means that the application is already written and now we're in a test phase, especially if we're talking about a spring release. I don't have any samples yet. I can talk about it in just a second. But if you want to be part of that news, just join our mailing list, or email me or whomever here, and we can keep you posted. Okay, so in bank reconciliation, you start with the cash account, and that's going to include your GL code, title, and status. Your GL codes will automatically flow into bank rec. I don't have to do a special bank transaction or anything like that. It's all integrated. Once I select my cash account, I can then select a reconciliation ID, and now I can see all the other pertinent data. I can see my cash disbursements, EFT transactions, check transactions. I can see all of that here. Same thing with the deposits. Other cash items are going to list my journal entries. The cash items here. Those are going to list my journal entries. So transfers or restricted revenue are going to show up here. Let's say you have irreconcilable items. Well, there's a great place for them. Let's go ahead and move them over to suspense items. For QuickBooks users, I've heard that this is what you would use for items that you can't carry from one month to another. There's no separate designation, and I've heard some pain around that topic. There's even a place to store and attach documents, actual reconciliations, receipts, statements, anything. I can go ahead and upload it here. If I'm going through each transaction, I have the ability to clear each item as I go. Or I have a way to import a list of cleared items should I have to handle that much volume. So I can very easily import, do 2 separate imports. I can A, import all of the transactions themselves, and then B, I can import all of the cleared items, and you'll see it here. And anything remaining will just be up to you to handle and manage. That's about it. Not a lot of frills here, at least not yet. We're being told the new and improved module will include a bank feed. And this feed is going to allow you to see the bank amount that is coming in from. This feed is going to show you 2 things. First, it's going to show the amount that is coming from MIP. And second, it's going to show the amount that's coming in from your bank. If those 2 match, good to go. This honestly would make the bank rec process much simpler. I don't have too much more information on the new and improved, but again, if you want some information or want to see what they're doing, then just give us a holler. We're getting close to all of the shots and topics that I wanted to highlight for MIP. I've got maybe 1 or 2 more slides, and then I want to jump over to customer feedback. And then I'm going to wrap things up and with a final recommendation. We've only looked at a few handfuls. a few modules that are available. The truth is MIP is a system that's going to grow with you. Most MIP customers come from QuickBooks, and they made the switch for multiple reasons. What we've seen is that most customers, when they make that switch, they're somewhere in the vicinity of $1 million, maybe $2 million in annual operating revenue. So that seems to be kind of a threshold. Of course, that's going to differ depending on how many streams or revenues and programs that you have to manage. Now, I've seen plenty of organizations grow past the 25 million mark before they made maybe a switch into another system, but I still work with plenty of nonprofits who are much bigger, and it seems like they'll never replace MIP. So maybe for folks that are wondering, am I the right size, am I the right fit, maybe that kind of information helps. Next thing I'm going to do is share some information from Trust Radius that tells the tale of two customers who've already made the switch. TrustRadius.com. Who is TrustRadius? They're an independent software review website which helps business select software based on reviews. And every review is verified and vetted, and they don't allow publishers to purchase ads. Here's two reviews. Neither of these are from JMT. I've already talked a lot about JMT, and I felt it was important here to talk about others. But you can see that both are enjoying the system. This information is public. You can very easily go to Trust Radius, type in MIP Fund Accounting, and see these reviews for yourself. And I would absolutely encourage you to do so. What's next? I think really it's all about the pursuit of happiness, your happiness. We suggest you pursue your interest and find a partner with a proven methodology who can help you find the right answers, a recipe for success, if you will. We think at JMT has that recipe, and we would really love the opportunity to help you find your happy place. I also want to let you know that our team will be contacting you next week, and it's up to you to respond. Why did you register? What were your expectations? How are you going to use this information? Where are you going to go from here? We're happy that you joined us today, and we want to be there for you in the future. In case you do, in case this is turning into a fact-finding mission, or you're thinking about maybe making a change, I'm going to share some aha moments from others who played a role in implementing a new system like MIP. So depending on which side of the fence you were, like Jackie, either you had the pleasure or the displeasure of going through an implementation. You'll have picked up a few tips, tricks, and rules to live by along the way. Number one, pick someone with lots of experience. It takes careful planning and management. Number two, work with a CPA from an audit perspective, and then let the software do the work. Number three, provide a safe haven for historical data, but chances are good you won't want or need to import that old data into the new system. Number four, you need to be involved. Well, you're here, aren't you? Number five, realize the more time and energy you invest in your systems, the better the return on your investment. And last but not least, same line of thinking. You'll want to invest time, money, and resource to keep your processes running optimally. And we also have to recognize that people change, needs change, and even the missions in which you manage can change. So long-term success requires periodic thought and movement. Realize also that the software is just a tool set. We're gonna stand on our pedestal and let people know that our process guarantees success. For me, finding the right solution is a little like finding your favorite bartender. I know this isn't a great analogy, but it's what I know. I know what I like, and I know how I like it, so it's up to me to find someone who can deliver. But what makes a good drink a good drink? Well, it's equal parts mixologist, process, and spirits. So it's that three-pronged approach. JMT uses a proven methodology to pair your mission with the right solution to produce an effective accounting practice. And last but not least, I've preached a lot about JMT. I stand behind MIP. I've been working with it for about 7 years now, and it's a great combination. But at the end of the day, it's all about risk, and I can tell you that our commitment to you are all of these things. Will guarantee, and this is all in the fine print, that our projects are going to be delivered on time. Everything's going to be on budget, price guaranteed. It's not an estimate. Again, this is all laid out in our terms and conditions. It's in plain English. And if you don't want to take my word for it, I understand. But if you want to give us a shot, give us a call and see for yourself. All right. Questions?
All right, we do have one question so far. If anyone else has a question, you can use the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. But right now we have from Howard, which expense management application does MIP Cloud integrate with right now?
Microy is one. Nexania is another one. Microy has built into their their electronic requisitions and PO module the ability to manage expenses, requests, approvals, things of that nature. That's one solution. It's kind of a twofer, if you will. Nexania is maybe a smaller organization. They are not as long of a partner with Community Brands and Abilla, but they have built the integration, and they have a dedicated expense management application that is 100% cloud-based, where Microy has both on-premise and cloud-based solutions. Again, both integrate well with MIP, regardless of whether or not your MIP is hosted or not.
Do you know specifically if MIP works with Expensify or Concur?
So works with, the answer is yes, but like any integration, there's really two levels. There is a flat file import in which we can use a CSV file as the intermediary, meaning we can export data out of Expensify or Concur to then import into MIP. That flat file transfer or definition file is something that we program all the time. I had 2 calls yesterday from customers who have chosen to go with Concur, and it doesn't matter if you're using Concur for one or many of their services. Maybe they're writing checks for you, maybe they are processing invoices, maybe they are managing expenses. It all, to some level, integrates. The other level of integration is an application programming interface, or API. This is something that has been around for a couple of years, though Community Brands has just now decided to spend some more resources and make some more effort in order to make that aspect of the business grow. There is nothing built quite yet, though I do know a couple folks that are going through that process right now. So again, the short answer to your question is we can definitely find a way to make that information flow from one place to another, but we hope that an API, something much more streamlined, something much more efficient and automated, would be available certainly by the end of the year.
Great, thank you. And one more that we have is from Anne. She says, does MIP integrate with PayPal or any other credit card processor?
Same line of thought as the expense management or Concur and Expensify. I'm trying to think if there's already been one API, maybe with Paylocity. I'd have to double check. But long story short, we want to get the information out of your third-party payroll and into MIP. And again, we would use that CSV file as the intermediary, and then post that information as a journal entry into MIP. So you can get a lot of detail. There's even an extra step that if you wanted to if you needed to manage all of the specific line items associated with payroll, all the benefits, deductions, and those allocated costs, we can even get that information, that granular information into MIP. So again, you can either post the information, summary information as a JE, or with the help of the allocation module, we can import that labor distribution a little bit more seamlessly and more accurately into the GL. As of right now, I don't know anyone, maybe besides Paylocity, that has an API built. Again, similar story. Everyone's wanting to do it, but it's going to take some time to get there.
Thank you. We don't have any other questions right now, but we can give it a minute and see if any other flow in.
Just to, I answered quickly, but the truth is any third-party data, whether it is a donor management system, a payroll system, a credit card system, all of those third parties have the ability to export your financial data, the credits and debits and the information that is associated, whether it's a vendor ID for credit card information, whether it's a employee ID for payroll, things like that. That definition file is a very cost-effective and tried and true way of getting information from one place to another. So I don't know if I placed enough emphasis when I gave that explanation, but that is something that we do routinely. That is not just proprietary to JMT. That is really every partner who's ever worked on the system, and it's a great way to manage data. There are some things that you just need to be aware of, and we can work with you through that. But I also want to emphasize that APIs are becoming more of a prevalent thing amongst nonprofits, and I'm excited to see that Community Brands is pouring more time, money, and energy into development of those interfaces. So you have something to fall back on. It's a good plan B. Plan A would hopefully be an API, but if we can't do it, then don't worry. We've got your back. We've got a good method for getting that data into MIP. Anyway, that sounds like it's it, unless there are any other questions.
Nope, there's no other questions. So thank you,
All right.
everyone,
All
for
right,
joining us, and check your email. We'll be sending you the recording.
Yeah, Kim, thanks for helping me out here. Still fuddling my way through Zoom, but anyway, thank you, audience, for joining us, and we'll be back in a month to talk about MIP versus QuickBooks. All right, so long, everyone. Have a great day.
You too.